Welcome to Cool Your Heels with Lillian Caldwell on AMFM247.com and Passionate World Talk Radio, the world in your hands. And this afternoon we have a very special guest. Her name is Joanna Hoffman, and she works with students in the LGBTQ community. So, good afternoon, Joanna. How are you this afternoon?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I really wanted to have you on because there's so much misinformation out there that I wanted to set the record straight and to let everybody know that everyone is welcome to play sports in this country.
Absolutely.
And that it was a topic that really needed to be discussed because everyone is making such a big deal out of something that really doesn't need to be blown out of perspective. They're just kids. They're just people. And yet everybody is so upset about it. And so I thought having you on today and explaining about how it's no different than anything else would set everybody's fears at rest. Do you agree?
Yes, happy to talk about it.
Terrific. So how difficult is it for a lot of these kids and teens to be involved in sports?
Well, I thought it might be helpful if first I just very quickly explain my connection to the work. So I work at Athlete Ally, which is a nonprofit that works to end homophobia and transphobia in sport. And we do that through education, and that's educating athletic communities and the public about how to make sport as inclusive as possible for LGBTQ people. We also work with sports policy to make sure that teams are as inclusive as possible. And then we also work with over 200 professional Paralympic and Olympic athletes who are both part of the LGBT community and who are straight allies who stand for LGBTQ equality. And so that being said, from our experience, what we've seen in terms of difficulties is that sport tends to be a very gendered space where there's boys teams, there's girls teams, and where there's really rigid definitions of masculinity and of what it means to be strong, what it means to be tough. And anyone who falls outside of those gender definitions or who falls outside of those definitions of masculinity often is the target of harassment and abuse. And that being said, I think, as we've really moved through history, we've seen so many strides made thanks to so many courageous athletes, both professionally and young student athletes who have come out or who have said, I may be a straight athlete, but I'm going to stand in solidarity with my gay teammates and same with coaches. And so I think that while we still see a lot of challenges remaining, we feel really hopeful about the future for that.
Do you find that, I know I was brought up in the 50s, so girls didn't play sports, period. We were the weaker sex. We were supposed to be barefoot and pregnant. And we were supposed to be inferior to guys. So there wasn't any little league for girls. There weren't any basketball teams for girls, especially professional basketball teams for girls that were in competitive sports. And I think except for maybe ice skating and maybe some skiing, you really did not see women and any of the other type of what they consider, quote, masculine, unquote, sports. And, of course, all that's changed. And I don't understand why a lot of the thinking did not change along with that. Because if you're looking at a girl, there's some boys who act more like girls, and there are a lot of girls who act more like boys. I was a tomboy. Actually, I guess I still am in some circles here. And yet, I also know that I had a lot of hurdles thrown in my way because I didn't I wasn't like everybody else, and that seemed to make people uncomfortable. So when you're out there educating people, what do you do to take away that uncomfortable feeling for them?
I think in this case, and as I think is the true in many cases, I think people are afraid of what they perceive to be unknown, or what is unknown to them. So if they think that they don't know anyone who's LGBTQ, then it's easier for them to kind of, dehumanize that group and apply stereotypes and misinformation to them. But then once they meet someone who is part of that community, or realize that someone they already know and care about is LGBTQ, they realize that a lot of the fears that they had are really based on nothing. And I think toxic masculinity comes into play when we have these rigid assumptions, like I said, of what it means to be a man or what it means to be strong. And we realize that kind of really rigid belief system doesn't just hurt LGBTQ people, it really hurts all of us. It hurts girls and women because it, keeps them from playing the sports that they want to play too. And it also hurts heterosexual men who, like you said, may not fit into those kind of stereotypes also, who, may not be traditionally, strong and muscular, but still, find enjoyment in sports and want to be a part of it.
So when a kid goes to school then, and he doesn't fit into the normal definition of what a boy is or what a girl is, how difficult is that for that child then to join the basketball team, the wrestling team, soccer, or some of the other contact sports?
I mean, I think that really depends on the coach, and it depends on that school's athletic department, and really the culture that they've intentionally both constructed and work to maintain. So I think, if a school really is mindful about wanting everyone to feel welcome, that there are different steps they can take to make that the case. They can have mandatory education for their players. They can have fan codes of conduct that say, it's not okay to yell out derogatory slurs during games. They can have policies, anti-discrimination policies on their team and so on, to make players feel welcome. And I think that really that's going to determine how welcome a player or a potential player feels.
So are you ever invited into some of the schools to kind of set the atmosphere for these kids to be able to join these teams without feeling they're going to be bullied for being a little bit different?
Oh, definitely. So our staff has been to, at this point, over 200 schools to conduct trainings.
And do you find any problem when they have to go into the locker room?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a big challenge, because I think that that's a space where gender becomes called into question a lot of the time, and where there can be a lot of misconceptions around where someone belongs, and so that's something that we've actually been working with both schools, but also with companies that design locker rooms and design, gyms and athletic spaces, in terms of thinking through how can we construct spaces where people feel safe and feel that their privacy is respected, and that they're not forced to say that they are a part of a gender that doesn't actually fit with their gender identity.
That must be very difficult, though, when it comes to, do they still do where the girls and the boys, they just go into one big shower room and take showers together? I mean, that's what we used to do. They didn't have individual stalls for us, so we were kind of like a herd of cattle that went into the room and everybody turned on the shower heads, but there were no curtains separating anybody. Do they still do that?
I think it depends on the school. I'm thinking back to my own school had individual showers, but I guess it depends on the layout of each individual locker room.
Okay.
And I think more and more you are seeing spaces where they may have a boys' locker room and a girls' locker room, but then they'll also have a separate gender-neutral space available.
And I would think that would make a lot of sense because
Mm-hmm.
kids at a certain age get embarrassed very easily.
Yeah.
And I don't, it doesn't matter whether they're gay or they're lesbian or they're transgender or bisexual, they're going to be embarrassed because that's the age when they
Mm-hmm.
don't want anybody to see what they look like. And I would think that that would be a really good idea for them to have something like that. Do you set out educational courses for the parents as well?
Well, we have educational resources that are really meant to be accessed by anyone. So we just released a free curriculum on LGBTQ inclusion in sport that was designed for coaches, but is really, it's online. Anyone can take it. And it's kind of, it has kind of like a one-on-one on different terms around sexuality and gender identity, but also how to make athletic spaces more inclusive. And so I think, if that's something that parents would find helpful, we would absolutely encourage them to use it. Our resources are tailored specifically for athletic spaces. So
it's basically for coaches who have their teams then at the different type of school, and it doesn't matter what kind of sport then that they're affiliated with. You have, I would suspect, steps for them to take of how to handle just about any type of situation.
Yeah, so it's pretty comprehensive. It's so it includes both kind of, like I said, the 101, kind of giving people a primer on sexual orientations, gender identity, and so on, but then also practical tools on how to develop an anti-discrimination policy, how to get your athletic department on board, how to get the messages out, how to plan like a pride night. So it's really, a whole kind of curriculum package together. And that's available on our website and through learn.athletealley.org.
Have you had a lot of people contact you outside of the coaches who say, I should come over to my school because we're having some problems. Some of the kids are beginning to bully some of the other kids, or they're saying some things that really shouldn't be said. Could you come on over and work with us so we can handle it better?
Yeah, so we do get contacted by coaches, but we also get contacted by athletes directly quite a bit. And then also, we get contacted by people who hear about us through our ambassadors who, are professional athletes who may post about the work that we do. And then that helps us to reach people who we wouldn't reach otherwise, who, often are young athletes in high school and in colleges.
Did you find any problems when some of the athletes were involved with the Olympics? Were there any problems from the other contestants who were there, or were the problems more with the parents or other people, the other adults? Because I know that not all countries treat the lesbian, gay, transgender kids well with dignity.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that that's something that we are trying to work on different governing bodies with, which is, when a site is selected for different athletic events, making sure that's a site where LGBTQ people are respected so that they don't have to make a choice of going somewhere where they may have to be closeted in order to protect their safety. The athletes that we work with, I don't know of specific cases of abuse or violence that have happened at the Olympics off the top of my head, though, thankfully.
Yeah, I was just curious because I do know that there's certain countries that take a very dim view of these type of people for whatever the reason, and a lot of them can be quite brutal on how they handle them. And since you do work with kids and young adults all the way up to, 23, 24 is the usual age for the kids who are in the Olympics, the seniors?
Well, we work with athletes of all levels.
Okay. So if there was a professional football player, then you'd be working with them if they had them on the team.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, many of our ambassadors are on the professional level.
And I think people need to be aware of that, because I know that when I wrote a book about teenagers, certainly some of the questions I received from several of the parents were, well, how would they treat my boy if he comes out of the closet and he declares this way and he goes on the wrestling team? Is he going to have a bad time because of this? And is there anything I should do in order to have him learn self-defense, or have him learn that if somebody calls him a nasty name, not to let it get to him? Because I do know that teens as a collective body don't always think before they open their mouths.
Yeah. And I think something to keep in mind, and I think you pointed out, is, it's not just other countries where these children are made to feel unsafe. It's here in this country too.
Yes.
Depends on where they are, and even in places where you might think of as being fairly liberal. I mean, I think, there are LGBTQ people everywhere, and there are people who are uneducated and need to be educated everywhere.
And I agree with it, because this is a very diverse country. Do you find that it's better for the kids in urban and city areas than being out in the country, or it doesn't really matter, it's just across the board of how these kids are being treated?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think that the more people are exposed to diverse populations, the more likely that, they'll have met someone who's LGBT and might have a more open mind, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about my own personal experience. I mean, I live in New York City. I'm a gay woman, and I've experienced homophobia here in New York, so.
New York is a pretty diverse population, though. You have a lot of different nationalities who come in, or even if they've been living in the States for 20 years, a lot of them have, the collective experience from their own parents and grandparents. And I'm a New York person. I've grown up all my life in and around New York. And I think it just kind of depends what part of New York you're traveling through at that particular time.
That's true. New York State is a very diverse state.
And I think that, are you planning on getting more national with your organization so that you can make more people aware of the benefits as well as some of the hurdles that these kids need to be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now, our staff travels quite a bit to different parts of the country, but something we also are looking to do is to convene student athletes and athletic leaders in different parts of the country on a regular basis, so that people are really able to build community and to utilize one another as resources, and to know that they're not alone in the work that they're trying to do. I think that's really important.
Kind of like a big club for them, or an organization within an organization, so they can go in and talk and learn how to take care of themselves in whatever type of situation they may find themselves in.
Yeah, absolutely. And not needing to reinvent the wheel every time a school needs to develop an inclusive policy, but realize that there are other schools who maybe have already done that they can learn from, and that they can use as a resource.
Joanna, could you tell everybody, please, where they can find you on the World Wide Web, but most importantly, where they can find, if you have any videos or any audios, or you have any information that people can download and actually get it down there, so that they can make it a point of discussion. Because
Definitely.
A lot of parents are involved with their kids' activities, whether baseball or basketball, they're coaches themselves, or they hang around and they shout advice. But I also know some of these parents see themselves as their kids, so they live their lives through their kids, and when these kids don't produce, they can get rather unnice, I should put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. So our website is www.athleteally.org. That's athlete And we also have the free curriculum that I mentioned, which is called Champions of Inclusion, and that's available at learn.athleteally.org. Also, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all under the handle Athlete Ally, and we have different videos there of athletes talking about their experiences and talking about why LGBTQ inclusion in sport is important to them. So would love for folks to follow us, to engage with us, to utilize the curriculum, and to reach out if there's anything we can do to help.
That's terrific. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I really urge you to go and take advantage of Joanna's offer, because all kids, no matter who they are or who they identify with, they need to be loved and they need to be supported. And they should know that they also have just the same kind of rights as anybody else.
Absolutely.
And you need to know this, ladies and gentlemen. So before you go away and stray, in 1746, a gentleman said, in Reflections and Maxims, to achieve great things, we must live as though we were never going to die. Thank you all very much for listening to Cool Your Heels with Lillian and our special guest, Joanna Hoffman. And you can listen to this next Tuesday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. on AMFM247.com. Also on https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. We're on a new website, passionateworldtalkradio.com. So please come and join us. You can also find us at facebook.com/passionateworldradio, on twitter.com, about Foundation, also on Google+, iTunes, iHeart, and now on Alexa. Just say AM/FM247, Alexa, I want to hear Cool Your Heels with Lillian, and voila, we will appear magically, and you can listen to Joanna as many times as you need. So thank you all very much for listening, and remember, please keep listening. Thank you.